again. Well, hope you can see me. It's me in disguise, me trying to hide still in my Sensphere saloon at some other mysterious, quiet destination, trying not to be found. So here we are again. After our first show last week about RTD's master plan, we're back again. This is Time Agent Brendan reporting from some saloon somewhere. Shh. This week, I can't get off it. He's done a variety interview. He's done a Rolling Stone interview, and I need to go back on RTD because actually he's given us more evidence of his master plan, more evidence of what he's planning. And I think we need to kind of get involved in it and actually explain, don't we? So if I first of all kind of explain via my usual tricks, we've got last week I said I had a decoding of his Who plans, and a few people criticised and said, "Where's your evidence? It's out of context." So I'll show you more this week. Don't you worry. Just to make sure you know who I am, Time Agent. I'm using a range of material, but also the updated version. But one headline today, I'm going to actually attest that I think RTD, Russell T Davies, our current BBC showrunner, might be in a banking. He might be a monarch. Or he could be doing a damn good impersonation of the Sun King, Louis XIV. Absolute monarchy. I will prove it. I tell you what, we should be worried. So, yeah, there you go. Remember him, Fort of Doomsday? Monarch. Well, I'll prove it and I'll show you at the end. Shh. Right, okay, right. So, our proof is going to be in the pudding. So, let's get right into these two kind of interviews from Rolling Stone and from Variety magazine. So, first of all, let's point out a couple of things. Right. Okay. First one. Last week, I outlined clues as to why RTD was going with his master plan and mission for the series. Of course, some people will push him back. Their strongest argument being my clues were out of context and stuff like that. Then we have these two interviews, and I want to prove we were right. There is an agenda, there is an mission, and he is angry. How dangerous is he? Well, I will prove he's got no checks and no balances, it seems, and I will show the evidence. I mean, for example, the BBC said they wanted to reinvent Doctor Who. They're clueless. In a few shows ago on the Sunday, we were talking about showrunner versus producer, which was best for Doctor Who. We were talking about whether the BBC had been neglectful of Doctor Who. And of course, people pushed back on that, thinking we'd been provocative. And then we're told by RTD that the BBC wanted it reinvented, wanted it brought back, but they didn't know what to do with it. They were clueless as usual. I've just been to Dwas Capital at the weekend, and Rob Sheeman was talking about this, that even in 2005, the BBC were still embarrassed about Doctor Who. So here we go again. When you've got an organisation which is clueless about its show, doesn't know what to do with it, doesn't know why it has been successful, and they've just hit a blip with Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker, and RTD comes running, this time with an agenda, we've got a dangerous, heady mix, haven't we? So, in this iteration, I will be discussing various sins, but you can see here. So there's a vacuum in Doctor Who. The BBC don't know what to do. They've done a deal with Disney and they want RTD back. Now take a look at my red highlight at the bottom. He says it's very hard for anyone to stop me doing these things. You'd have to be a pretty brave executive to say, don't go there to me. I'm sure there are people thinking that, but I wouldn't work with them, would I? So what is RTD saying here? He likes an echo chamber. He doesn't like checks and balances. He doesn't like people questioning him. Is he in a banking? Is he Louis XIV? Is he an absolute monarch? Point of evidence number one. So as you can see there in yellow, he said we auditioned, and when he later talks about Andy Pryor having 20, we auditioned men, women, black, white, non-binary actors and actors whose sexuality was their own private matter because we want to break down barriers, or as in he does. So basically, he has decided this is the moment to change the Doctor's character. Okay? Let's just be frank on that. He's decided, and nobody would ever question him. And when he left Doctor Who before, he says in the interview, I had muscles to flex in the adult drama space. The difference now with RTD coming back, it seems, is he's happy to flex his muscles in this more family and kid-orientated drama. And I think that's a dangerous mix. And remember last week, I showed this quotation, and the person who questioned me last week, I think didn't realize it was Shuti Gatwa saying this, not me, who said the costumes for his doctor obviously had been rubber stamped by RTD, who nobody can question, was all gender pushing and societal pushing outfits. And I've just shown you another piece of evidence where he said he wants to flex his muscles, and he also said he wants to break down barriers. So please add it all together. So that's the situation we're in with RTD regarding where he wants to go. So let's just clarify for a moment, please. He does feel as though he has clout. He only surrounds himself with echo chambers. He won't countenance argument or debate. Think about when he brought back Davros. He said it was a by committee, and we all agreed. I think we can now actually permanently conclude it was with him. Everything into question is now. So now he is a kid with a toy box to do as he wants. I showed you this evidence last week. The Guardian writer, who's a fan of Russell T Davies, was saying this is exactly how he's going to proceed. So again, some of the evidence from last week dovetails quite nicely with what he says himself. So then we move on to, now we've got the BBC who are clueless and needy and need to be bailed out of a situation with Doctor Who. RTD comes back. He surrounds himself with people who won't question him. And then he says he's going to start again. And rather than replaying the series as greatest hits over and over, and yes, I think a lot of us could agree that you can't thrive, the series can't thrive by just going back to the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Master, and all the rest. You can't. You have to be fresh. But he doesn't just stop there, does he? He doesn't just stop there. I was thinking about what a terrible world it is now and how many stresses of mental health there are in young people. I wanted a hero who wasn't closed, who wasn't all stiff upper lip. So I wanted a hero who felt more. So when you go back to the church on Ruby Road and you've seen in the trailer the teardrop in Shooty's eye, and you start to realise that our showrunner, our absolute monarch, our Urbankan monarch, is saying that the Doctor's character has to suddenly change because he says so. Suddenly, to reflect possibly what RTD thinks is going on in society, the Doctor now has to be more emotionally fragile or emotionally flexible. And suddenly, instead of showing children a role model who can fight through things and be emotionally resilient or show ways of being resilient, we're going to show a hero who maybe doesn't have that resilience. That's really going to help. As a former teacher, I'm not quite sure about that. But that was the game I was in. RTD, you've never dealt with that world, but you know better, of course you do. So you're thinking to help these emotionally fragile children and mentally people who are suffering from mental health, you're going to show various things that are gender pushing, shows things that are societal pushing, what to confuse them more, to make them challenge themselves more. That's caring. So, you know, he goes on. Oh, he's worried about so many things. I think our rights are in danger, and he's talking about queer people. Doesn't really say gay people anymore, does he? I'm talking as someone who's lived through the gay liberation, all the way through the AIDS crisis, all the way through to the freedoms that we have now. I can see them spinning and being endangered. So there's no choice in this. Excuse me. What was that again? There's no choice in us doing this in Doctor Who. I have to do this, is RTD saying that. And remember, I've just proven nobody will question him. Nobody will be brave enough. So here's the man with a mission. He is the man who's decided he sees the world a certain way. That's allowed. But he's bringing it into a kid's realm, into a family drama with kids who we really do want watching. He always mentions 8-year-olds watching. So he's going there. I'm fascinated as a gay Doctor Who fan who finds that actually when you do have, if you promote trans in a certain type of way, especially with children, what you're possibly doing is actually eliminating gay people. So if he's bothered about gay people, he's got a funny way of doing it by showing what he did in Star Beast. I would countenance. And my advice when you're talking about emotionally endangered, people who are emotionally, finding things difficult, is not to show their hero as somebody in undies once he's kind of regenerated born. I would suggest to any child in my care and in my safeguarding that if they are emotionally fragile, if they're finding life hard, to really protect themselves from any exposure like that. And it was only in the news, wasn't it, yesterday, that the government has actually asked every school to talk to children about this sextortion. So, of course, this is a very topical issue and a very dangerous issue for children. And we've got our hero who is very kind of into talking about twerking, showing his physique, objectifying himself, being a bit gayer and more flamboyant. I'm not saying gay is bad, but you know what I mean. We've gone sexual rather than, as RTD actually says himself, rather than having a neutered doctor. So here we go. I think if you're 6 years old, you don't care what you see, really, says RTD. Gosh, he so dismisses the kids, doesn't he? But nonetheless, as the world darkens, and I do think the world is darkening around queer rights. I don't know what queer rights are. I know what rights are and human rights are, and I know you can break them down a bit more into gay rights or whatever, but I'm not quite sure where he's going with this because I've never actually understood what queer was apart from a slur. I'm beginning to worry about where we are in society, and I want a hero out there cutting his way through the universe with looking good in suits and doing it with a laugh and a smile. Okay, that doesn't mean he's dealing with his emotional issues. It just means he's doing some version of distraction. But looking good in suits, what's that got to do with resilience? Sometimes this is so superficial. You know, you get a progressive movement who suddenly goes very silly and they're wading into territory they don't know much about. So let's see where we go next with all this amazing evidence of what he's going to do with our Doctor Who show and character. As you've said, it's been teased. He will be the gayest Doctor Who ever. I was mentioning that again last week. So with emotionally challenged children, with people who are having mental health issues, you're going to go into the sexual domain as well. Is this really just complicating what could be something much purer, much more straightforward, and actually much more escapist and fun? And of course, I showed you last week, and it was in the original Imagine documentary with RTD, when even Julie Gardner said he sees the darkness in humans. He's as dark as the pits of hell, and he's in charge of educating and dramatizing a program for our children. Right? Okay. And nobody will question him, remember? So, as you can see here, he has decided that the present moment calls for a different kind of doctor. And as you know, we keep getting told in these last couple of weeks as fans, as diehard fans, to go and clear off. We are racially slurred, or we're told we don't actually truly understand Doctor Who. And now he's saying we need a different doctor completely now, suddenly, because he's decided. I don't think there's been a committee about this. He's decided. I find it also funny when you really get into this material that the showrunner who's trying to be so progressive really should cancel himself. Shall we have a black showrunner? That might be a start. So, the bi-generation to me, when you really look at it, if he thinks he's pitching at emotionally fragile people, I really don't think we should be starting a new character like this at all. Not at all. And he goes on and on. I feel like anyone that has a problem with someone who's not a straight white man, says Shooty, who was in the same interview. Sorry. I feel like anyone that has a problem with someone who's not a straight white male playing this character, you're not really, truly a fan of the show. You've not been watching. My snag with this is, while RTD is sat right next to him, who is feeding our poor Shooty, our new male hero? Who is feeding him this nonsense that anybody's criticising his doctor or Doctor Who now because of the colour of his skin? I've just been to Dwas. Nobody is. Who's doing this? Because I think we're actually just gaslighting here, you know. We really are misdirecting Shooty. Now, if Shooty thought people were being racist, he's quite right to say what he's saying. But I'm sorry, mate, you are being misdirected and actually almost manipulated by the people around you, because nobody is criticizing you because of your skin color. Nobody. There might be questioning the production. There might be questioning the direction of the show. They might be questioning some of the plot lines. They might be questioning the persona of your character, but they are not questioning your selection in that way. No way at all. And whoever is leading you there needs to stop that now, because that is a dangerous way to do it. So, of course, Davies does chime in instead of trying to kind of lead Shooty away from making a fool of himself, because nobody is thinking that. He says, the doctors weren't exactly the straightest men in the past. Has anyone told Hartnell and Troughton and Colin Baker and Tom Baker and Peter Davies and Chris Eccleston and David Tennant kissing everybody in the show? I could go on. Has anyone told them that they weren't really playing it that straight? When was Doctor Who not straight? Or you mean in the final little kind of clues in the Jodie Whittaker era, which was a concocted story by the actors? Really? Are we really going there, RTD? Do you really like Doctor Who? I mean, I am starting to wonder whether you're saying you're a custodian of Doctor Who and whether you really truly understand it and whether you truly like it. And using your 2024 prism, when you look at Doctor Who, you sound embarrassed about it. I mean, later on, I'm going to mention, of course, his quote about the sonic screwdriver. He doesn't like the Doctor's character, too aloof, too closed, he says. He's obviously changing a lot about the style of the show. It's been done before, so, that's a free pass in a way. But now he's got a mission that the Doctor has to be so different. You start to think, hold on a minute, do you really like this show? So he talks about queer energy. Again, I'm not quite sure what these definitions are because I don't know. I feel so excluded and I'm a gay man, so God knows what the rest of the population thinks. So it talks about lightness and joy and it chimes with queer energy. And yes, as I said earlier, we're not delivering a neutered Doctor. A neutered Doctor is a very strange phrase to use, isn't it? Neutered, taking his tackle away. So basically, all those Doctor Who's we loved before, he was operating without his tackle. Well, of course, it was escapist. It was sci-fi, fantasy in many ways. It was fun, and it was also serious. And yes, having a young woman travelling in the TARDIS with an older man, it was probably safer to get on with the adventure. And I agree with that. And maybe when you had Leela in the TARDIS with her leathers, it was probably best to get on with the story too. But now he doesn't want to neuter the Doctor. Now RTD wants to go there. Now, as you know, some of us will say he's been going there for quite a while now. The Doctor's been interested in dancing. The Doctor's been interested in kissing. The Doctor's been interested in marrying. It's all started to happen. And I know some die-hard New Who fans will say, oh, it's always been like this. It hasn't at all. The Doctor, I would have never said the Doctor was neutered. He was an alien and he had other things to deal with and he had perspective. He didn't have time to, settle down like the 14th Doctor tragically is doing now. So, RTD, is he acting like an absolute monarch? Is he out of control? I've mentioned the lack of checks and balances, and look at him. It's about time we changed things and we spiced it up. He seems to think we're spicing it up by picking a black actor, and I think he's a bit old-fashioned here. I think the rest of us have moved on a long way from there. He thinks he's the gatekeeper of television, inviting diverse representation into the Doctor Who show as if it never was there before. The gatekeeper of television? Does that mean he's got a god complex? Does that mean he thinks he is the savior? That is a dangerous complex to have with no checks and balances, I would attest. So, when we were told that Ncuti Gatwa was chosen, he stood out a mile, and Jane Tranter actually says in the interview that, it was an audition of a lifetime. We find out it was 20 actors, and it was 20 actors, and the 20 were male, female, blah, blah, blah. So basically, it sounds as though they were looking for a certain type of Doctor in the first place. But, they make it sound as though he stood out a mile from this amazing field. Look at this, Doctor Who fans, because I'm getting affronted by a lot of things, and I'm fairly moderate usually. It's part of the article, but obviously they're reflecting where the producers and showrunners think they're going. Perhaps the freshest start of all is that Gatwa is the first black actor to play the Doctor. And as you know, we can actually say, well, which will be a big change for legacy viewers. Well, I don't know. Am I a legacy viewer? I've been watching it. I'm one of those who's always supported it. Doctor Who needed us in the wilderness years. Now I'm a legacy viewer, and it sounds as though that it's like a euphemism for what, bigot, which will be a big change for legacy viewers. Sorry, it's not a big change at all. In fact, as usual, the media gets very excited when they make a decision that the rest of the world has been getting on with for years. Sorry, mate. What big change? What, you've just changed the skin color of a lead actor? Really? I'm not excited by that. That's fine. That is so yesterday. Wow. And you're proud of yourselves. Isn't it funny how the progressives get so excited about things when society's moved on? This is sad. Nobody would flicker an eyelid at this. Apparently, it's a big change. And then, of course, they're so proud that they have to talk about this even more. And this is where Shooty Gatwa's getting misled. I'm trying to give him a free pass slightly, although I don't like some of the language he's used. I feel very, very honoured that I get to be the first of a couple of things, because I think if you're a true fan of the show, you understand that. And of course, he goes on about regeneration and it always changes as a programme. We're not challenging the skin colour, Shooty. We're challenging the plot. We're challenging where the show's going. We're challenging the agenda. We're not challenging your choice. And it's a shame that you're being led like that, because they're making you look silly. And that is a shame. That is a real shame. That's not a good place to put the lead actor. Because as Shooty says, it evolves and it regenerates. For all you dammers out there, I'm not going anywhere. Well, I'm happy with that, because I think you come across as charismatic. I'm happy with that because I do think you have that kind of Tom Baker smile. I think there's a lot of positivity within you and energy and verve and vitality. And I'm hoping you've been given decent quality scripts. So I don't, again, I was surrounded by Doctor Who fans at the weekend at Dwas. I'm not aware of any dammers out there at all. You're being misled, I'm afraid. So yes, if you're going to be in Doctor Who for a while, good, because I get sick of the Doctor changing too often as well. And so, looking red. This is obviously when we get back to Davies. He says Doctor Who auditioned performers of every race, gender identity, and sexual identity before Gatwa was chosen, and that this feels less momentous to him and his new star than it may to viewers. I could try and snore here at this point. Again, why do you think we're in the dark ages, RTD? Do you think you're the savior of society? A lot of us are all diverse out there and work with a whole diverse range of people. We've been doing it for years, RTD. I don't know where you've been, but stop starting to think that we are ignorant. Stop insulting us. Just because you've made a decision in 2022, don't think you're ahead of the game. You're not. Wow, unbelievable. But then it leads Shooty Gatwa to going into dangerous terrain, and I cannot excuse him. In our last show, and I'm sure every streamer's done it, again, I'm not going to repeat the words, you all know it, when Shooty Gatwa went too far and used a racial slur against people who just innocently watched the TV programme. Absolutely disgraceful. And the showrunner should have called him out. The BBC, if it wants to follow its diversity policy and all their policies about equal opportunities, should have actually, he should have been well and truly ticked off, at least. And now we've got him saying in front of RTD, remember, don't watch, you lot, you naysayers. Turn off the TV, go and touch grass. Wow, I mean, whoa, where are we going? We thought Jodie Whittaker was bad when she said certain things, but this is off the scale. This is really sounding like a war against the Doctor Who fans who have questioned some aspects of the new production and Chris Chibnall's, and they seem to be saying to us, get with our script, get with our agenda, or go away. And you know what? I love Doctor Who. I don't want to go away. I don't want to give ownership of the show over. But it is so tempting. It is so tempting when you will get language and slurs getting thrown at you so willfully. Now, I mentioned, Hello, folks. I'm a Doctor Who fan. This is all about Doctor Who and the love of Doctor Who. So, our showrunner, who says he's the custodian, and our new excited lead actor have just spent loads of interviews hardly mentioning Doctor Who that I recognise in any way. I've heard about agendas, messages, representation, and slurs, but I haven't heard much about Doctor Who. So, okay, then, let's get back to Doctor Who. With good old RTD, who, as you know, knows his Doctor Who inside out. Right, let's have a look. The Doctor's trusty sonic screwdriver has to be redesigned. What? The old sonic looked too much like a gun, which would encourage kids to pretend to shoot at one another. Wow. You see, this is getting silly. This is almost like somebody who's almost having a breakdown. You think, seriously, are you seriously thinking this is a problem? Right, let's take a look. I couldn't deal with this any longer. There's our whole spectrum of sonic screwdrivers. Right, viewers, take a look. Come on, and hopefully RTD, take a look. They look like guns. The way Jodie Whittaker was directed to use it, it looked like a wand. So if it looked like a wand and is now offensive, Harry Potter better not have a wand. I tell you what, because RTD would be censoring it. Such a dangerous thing. Look at the way Matt Smith's holding his. Look at the way they're almost looking as though they're holding them almost like a torch or a piece of a lipstick. I mean, they're not holding it like a gun. Neither does it look like a gun. It looks like a screwdriver. This is insane. So my worry is we've got a man who I have proven earlier in the show is an absolute monarch. There are no checks and balances. He is surrounded by people he has said who would not be brave enough to question him. And he's changing the show. It's season 1. So if anything happens in season 1 that didn't happen before season 1, go away. Go and sniff grass. Who cares? And that's it. And you know, you start to think, what are you doing with this Doctor Who show? What is this about? So anybody who saw my first saloon last week and said, "Oh, Brendan, I don't know where you found the agenda." In fact, I didn't see much evidence at all. Oh, I think some people should be sniffing some grass. It's not me. So I hope I have proven a lot more this week that our showrunner, RTD, super fan of the show, as Variety magazine said, has sadly turned into a bankan monarch who now thinks it's his show, it's his franchise, he can do no wrong. He is now the god, the savior, the gatekeeper of Doctor Who and most of the media. That's where we are. And I was supposed to talk about something cheerful today, was I? Do you see why I'm in hiding? Do you see why I'll have to move before my encrypted messages are found again? Thank you for supporting me last week. Keep supporting us. The message might change. It may not be about RTD next week. Let's hope not. But I'm sorry, but they keep talking. They keep giving me stuff. They keep giving me clues and evidence that I have to decipher. So this is Time Agent Brendan serving you, giving you time to reflect. Who better get out of this place fast before I'm found. So till the next time, goodbye.